Even before Olympus, mortal humans, or even the Earth itself came into being, there was only an endless void. The ancient Greeks called it chaos. It was not disorder in the usual sense, but a boundless expanse where neither time, nor light, nor darkness existed. Nothing moved, and nothing had form. There were no mountains or seas, no stars in the sky. The universe slept in silence, awaiting a force capable of awakening it. Hidden within this primordial silence lay the potential for the birth of all that exists. It was from this state that the history of the cosmos began. Ancient poets said that chaos, Gaia, and other primordial forces were the first to emerge. But among them was one entity that would forever change the fate of the world. It was a force that compelled the divided to strive for unity, and the motionless to begin moving. Its name was Eros. When Eros was born among the primordial forces, the world did not yet look as we know it today. He was not a boy with golden curls and a bow. In the most ancient myths, Eros was a majestic cosmic force, older than many gods. He embodied desire, attraction, and the drive to create. His appearance was the first spark of life in the cold void of chaos. It was thanks to Eros that the separate parts of the future world began to feel mutual attraction. That which was solitary sought union. That which was motionless yearned for movement. The ancient Greeks believed that without this force, neither the birth of the gods nor the creation of the world would be possible. Eros became the first energy to give the universe direction and purpose. Under the influence of Eros, the first great forces of the cosmos began to take shape. Gaia, the great Earth, rose from the abyss and became the foundation of all future life. Above her stretched Uranus, the boundless sky. It was the power of Eros that compelled them to unite. From this union, mighty beings began to be born, the Titans, the Cyclopes, and other primordial creatures. From then on, the world was no longer empty. Movement, life, and change appeared in it. Eros acted unnoticed, but his power was present everywhere. He did not command or compel. Instead, he awakened the desire to be together, to create something new, and to continue existence. Thus began the great history of generations of gods. Unlike other gods, Eros did not always have a distinct form. He was rarely described as a ruler on a throne or a fearsome warrior. He was a force that could be felt but not held. The wind cannot be seen, yet it stirs the waves. In the same way, Eros ruled the world through desires and emotions. Even the most powerful beings succumbed to his influence. He did not use weapons or commands. His power was desire. It was desire that compelled the gods to create new generations and living beings to continue life. This was the true might of Eros. His power was invisible, yet stronger than stone and lightning. The world cannot exist solely through strength or power. Harmony is essential for its development. Ancient thinkers believed that it was Eros who brought about this balance. He united opposites, light and darkness, earth and sky, order and chaos. This created the possibility for creation. Where emptiness once reigned, life began to emerge. Plants reached toward the sun, rivers found their way to the sea, and living beings sought one another out. All of this was considered a manifestation of Eros's great power. He was not merely the god of love, but the law of existence itself. Without him, the universe would have fallen apart into separate pieces that could never be reunited. In time, Titans, Olympians, and mortal heroes will emerge. Great kingdoms of the gods will rise, and wars and battles will take place that will change the course of world history. But even then, Eros will remain a force older than many of them. His influence will not fade with the arrival of new generations of gods. On the contrary, he will grow even stronger. For every friendship, every passion, every dream, and every birth will carry within them a fragment of his power. Thus began the story of Eros. Not as a mischievous winged boy, but as an ancient cosmic force that kindled the first spark of life in the darkness of chaos and became one of the foundations of the entire created world. In the days of ancient gods, voivodes, and kings, the long-suffering land awaited a hero. And then came the mighty Demiurge Tales channel, tempered in the flames of battle. Power, passion, danger. His videos will change the world. Epochs past. The world, which had once been in its infancy under the influence of the primordial Eros, was now filled with gods, titans, and mortals. In the new myths, the image of the ancient cosmic force gradually changed. Poets began to speak of Eros as a young god of love, beautiful and eternally youthful. He was most often called the son of Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and passion. According to some legends, his father was Ares. This origin had deep symbolism. After all, love and war often go hand in hand, capable of bringing both happiness and suffering. From his mother, Eros inherited beauty and charm, and from his father, an invincible power to influence the hearts of gods and mortals. When Eros was still an infant, a strange prophecy spread among the gods. It foretold that Aphrodite's son would become so powerful that not even the immortals could resist his will. Some of the gods laughed it off. How could a small child pose a threat to the rulers of Olympus? But Aphrodite knew that there was truth hidden in the words of the seers. She had seen how even the wisest gods sometimes lost their minds because of their feelings. Over time, it became clear that Eros's weapon was more dangerous than swords and lightning. He could change destinies without a single battle, simply by touching a heart with his magical power. Unlike his original depiction, the new Eros was given wings. The ancient Greeks explained this by saying that love is fleeting and fickle. It can arrive unexpectedly and vanish just as suddenly. His wings allowed Eros to travel between the sky, the earth, and the seas, reaching every corner of the world. Artists often depicted him as a smiling boy, but this appearance was deceptive. Behind his childlike features lay a power that even the mightiest gods could not resist. His flight was faster than the wind, and his influence penetrated even the most hidden corners of the soul. Eros's most famous weapon was his bow, but his arrows were unusual. Some had golden tips and sparked passionate love. Others were made of lead and brought indifference or even aversion. With one shot, Eros could set a heart ablaze with passion, and with another, he could shatter a lover's hopes forever. That is why even the Olympians feared him. No one knew when he would decide to draw his bow and choose a new victim for his spells. To gods and mortals alike, his arrows were invisible, but the consequences of their impact changed the course of entire lives. As soon as Eros realized the power of his arrows, he began testing them on the inhabitants of Olympus. He enjoyed watching the stern gods suddenly become helpless in the face of their emotions. He could make a proud warrior fall in love with a simple nymph or ignite passion between beings who had previously not even noticed one another. Sometimes his pranks brought happiness, and sometimes they caused great tragedies. But it was precisely through these antics that Eros became increasingly aware of the extent of his own power. He realized that he could influence not only individual hearts, but also the fate of entire nations. On Mount Olympus reigned the mighty Zeus, Lord of lightning and the heavens. He was feared by the Titans, mortals, and even many gods. Yet there was a power against which even he was sometimes powerless. It was the power of Eros. No law, no weapon, and no divine power could fully protect against love. That is why the little winged god gradually became one of the most influential inhabitants of Olympus. Ahead of him lay stories that would prove that sometimes a single arrow can change the world more profoundly than the greatest war. Over the years, Eros proved time and again that his power knew no bounds. Mortals had long realized they could not withstand his arrows, but soon the gods came to the same realization. There was no inhabitant of Olympus who was completely immune to the power of love. The wisest lost their reason, the most cautious committed rash acts, and the strongest became helpless in the face of their own feelings. Eros needed no armies or palaces. His power worked silently, penetrating the heart before the victim even realized the danger. That is precisely why his power was unique. He did not conquer the world by force, but altered the desires of those who ruled it. And the more the gods felt his influence, the more evident the truth became. Even the immortals could not escape their fate once Eros had drawn the bowstring. Even the mighty Zeus fell victim to the power of love on more than one occasion. The Lord of the Heavens was a formidable ruler before whom gods and mortals trembled, but his heart was often defenseless against the charms of Eros. Because of this, Zeus fell in love with goddesses, nymphs, and mortal women. Many legends about the birth of heroes begin precisely with stories of his passions. Some of these feelings brought glory, while others became the cause of conflicts and jealousy. Watching this, the gods became increasingly convinced that Eros's power reached even the throne of Olympus. His arrows could compel the most powerful ruler in the world to act contrary to his own caution and wisdom. Zeus's wife Hera often suffered because of his escapades. She watched her husband succumb to his passions time and again, and directed her wrath at those she deemed to be at fault. Many mortals and nymphs suffered punishment because of Hera's jealousy. Although the goddess herself rarely blamed Eros directly, she knew full well that it was his arrows that were behind many events. Thus, love became a source not only of happiness but also of suffering. Eros showed that feelings can be beautiful, yet dangerous at the same time. They are capable of inspiring great achievements or destroying the lives of those who cannot control their passions. One day, the young god of love decided to teach the proud Apollo a lesson. Apollo had mocked Eros's small bow, considering it a mere toy compared to his own mighty weapon. Enraged, Eros decided to prove him wrong. He shot a golden arrow at Apollo, causing him to fall madly in love with the nymph Daphne. Then, he shot Daphne with a lead arrow that caused instant repulsion. From then on, Apollo pursued the nymph, while she tried with all her might to escape. This story became one of the most famous proofs of just how powerful Eros's weapon was. When Apollo was about to catch up with Daphne, she turned to the gods for help. Her prayer was answered. To escape his unwanted love, the nymph transformed herself into a laurel tree. Apollo remained by her side, still consumed by his unyielding passion. Since then, the laurel has become his sacred plant and a symbol of remembrance for lost love. For Eros, this event served as yet another reminder of the power of his arrows. A single shot changed the fates of two beings and created a legend that would be retold for generations. Thus, even a small god proved that his power surpassed the pride and self-confidence of the great Olympians. After the incident with Apollo, even those gods who had previously treated Eros lightly began to exercise greater caution. They realized that behind his childlike smile lay a power capable of changing the lives of entire generations. His arrows could forge alliances between gods and mortals, give birth to heroes, or cause tragedies. Eros became increasingly aware of his own power. He was no longer just the son of Aphrodite or a mischievous winged boy. He had become the master of emotions, before whom even the inhabitants of Olympus bowed. But ahead of him lay a story that would forever become the most famous of all myths about love. His encounter with the beautiful Psyche. Amongst mortals lived a princess named Psyche. Her beauty was so extraordinary that rumors of her spread far beyond the borders of her kingdom. Travelers would leave the temples and altars dedicated to Aphrodite just to catch a glimpse of the mortal girl. Soon, people began to admire Psyche more than the goddess of beauty herself. This was a grave insult to Aphrodite. She could not allow a mortal to receive the honor that belonged to an immortal goddess. Her anger grew day by day until she finally decided to punish the girl. Thus began one of the most famous stories in all of Greek mythology, a tale of love, trials, and immortality. Enraged, Aphrodite summoned her son, Eros. She ordered him to use one of his arrows to make Psyche fall in love with the ugliest man on earth. The goddess wanted her rival to suffer from unrequited love for the rest of her life. Eros obediently took his bow and set out to carry out his mother's command. He descended to Psyche's chambers and saw the girl sleeping. Her beauty struck even the god of love himself. Leaning closer, he accidentally wounded himself with his own golden arrow. In that very moment, something happened that he had never expected. The ruler of hearts himself became a victim of his own weapon. From that moment on, Eros could no longer obey Aphrodite's command. His heart belonged to Psyche, but he knew that his mother would never allow this love to exist openly. Meanwhile, Psyche herself, despite her beauty, remained alone. Countless men were captivated by her, but none dared to ask for her hand in marriage. People viewed her almost as a divine being. Her father began to worry about his daughter's future and turned to the oracle for advice. The answer was terrifying. Psyche must be left atop a lonely mountain where a man awaited her, a man whom even the gods feared. The king and queen were devastated, but did not dare to defy the will of the heavens. When Psyche was left on the cliff, she expected a terrible fate. But instead of a monster, she was carried away by the gentle breeze of Zephyr. He transported the girl to a wondrous valley where stood a magnificent palace of gold and marble. There she was met by invisible servants who granted her every wish. Every night, a mysterious man came to her. He was gentle and caring, but asked for only one thing: never to try to see his face. Psyche agreed. She was happy and gradually fell in love with her unknown husband, not knowing that he was Eros himself. Days and nights passed. Psyche lived in luxury and love, but her curiosity began to grow. When her sisters visited the palace, they grew envious of her happiness. Seeing the riches and hearing the story of her invisible husband, they began to convince Psyche that her beloved was actually a hideous monster. Her sisters advised her to take a lamp and a knife so she could see his true form at night. At first, Psyche didn't believe them, but the seed of doubt had already been sown. The more she thought about it, the more she longed to know the truth. One night, Psyche could take it no longer. When her husband fell asleep, she lit an oil lamp and carefully held it up to his face. Before her lay not a monster, but the most beautiful of the gods, Eros himself. His golden wings shone in the semi-darkness, and his features were filled with divine perfection. Stunned, Psyche leaned over him, but at that moment a drop of hot oil fell on his shoulder. Eros awoke. Seeing the lamp in his beloved's hands, he realized that his trust had been betrayed. Saddened and wounded, the god spread his wings and vanished into the night sky. Thus ended their happiness, and for Psyche began a long journey of trials that would determine the fate of their love. When Eros vanished into the night sky, Psyche was left alone in the empty palace. Everything that had once brought her joy had disappeared, along with the god of love. The marble halls grew silent, the voices of the invisible servants fell still, and the enchanted valley lost its magic. Realizing her mistake, Psyche set out in search of her beloved. She wandered through the lands of mortals and gods, crossing mountains and rivers, but could find Eros nowhere. With each passing day, her sorrow grew deeper. Yet she refused to let despair overcome her. Her love was true, and she was ready to face any trial to reunite with the one she had lost through her own carelessness. Soon, Psyche went to Aphrodite herself, hoping to earn her forgiveness. But the goddess was filled with rage. She blamed the mortal not only for losing Eros's trust, but also for causing her son to suffer from unrequited love. Aphrodite decided to subject Psyche to a series of nearly impossible trials. She hoped the girl would not withstand the hardships and would forever lose hope of seeing Eros. But Psyche did not back down. She accepted the goddess's will, for she knew only by proving the strength of her feelings could she win back the one she loved above all else. The first challenge was to sort through a huge pile of grain containing a mixture of wheat, barley, millet, and other crops. Aphrodite ordered the task to be completed before sunset. It seemed impossible. But Psyche was helped by ants, who separated the grains into separate piles. Then the goddess ordered her to obtain the golden fleece of the dangerous sun rams. And once again, nature came to the girl's aid. The next tasks were even more difficult: to bring water from a sacred spring among steep cliffs and to carry out other dangerous assignments. Each time, the gods or spirits secretly helped Psyche. Her perseverance and sincerity evoked sympathy even in those forces that usually remained indifferent to mortals. The final trial was the most terrifying. Aphrodite handed Psyche a small box and ordered her to descend into the underworld to obtain a fragment of divine beauty from Persephone. It was a journey from which almost no one ever returned. Psyche walked through the dark paths of the underworld, crossed the gloomy banks of the underground rivers, and followed all the instructions necessary to return. Persephone gave her the box, but sternly warned her not to open it. Psyche set off back to the world of the living, carrying with her her last hope of reuniting with Eros. When Psyche had almost completed her journey, curiosity got the better of her. She thought that if the box contained divine beauty, even a small part of it would help her win Eros's favor even more. Giving in to this thought, she lifted the lid. There was no beauty inside. Instead, a magical sleep burst forth from it, instantly plunging her into an unbreakable slumber. Psyche fell to the ground, as if dead. But this time, Eros was nearby. He had long since forgiven his beloved and had been secretly watching her trials. Seeing Psyche lifeless, he flapped his wing, returned the dream to the box, and awakened her with his touch. After all the trials they had endured, Eros no longer wanted to be parted from Psyche. He ascended to Olympus and asked Zeus to approve their union. The ruler of the gods agreed. He summoned the immortals to a festive banquet and ordered that nectar and ambrosia be served to Psyche. As soon as she tasted the food of the gods, the mortal girl became immortal. Even Aphrodite came to terms with this marriage. And so Eros and Psyche were finally reunited forever. Their story became a symbol of how true love can survive doubts, losses, trials, and even death. It is no coincidence that Psyche's name means soul, for this myth tells of the eternal union between love and the soul, a union that no power in the world can destroy. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share your impressions of the video.